We are in section 5.5, additional applications of integration to business and economics. We discussed equilibrium price in previous chapters. We will now use equilibrium price to discuss the idea to consumers and producers surplus. So again, an equilibrium price is the price of a good where the supply is equal to that of the demand. So S of Q is equal to D of Q, which is equal to P naught. The market determines the price at which a product is sold. The consumer will purchase the same amount of a product that the manufacturer wants to sell at the equilibrium price. Some consumers, however, would be willing to spend more for an item than the equilibrium price. The total of the difference between the equilibrium price for an item and the higher price the individual would be willing to pay is thought of as a savings realized by those individuals and is called the consumer's surplus. So consumer surplus is defined as the difference between the amount the producer is willing to supply goods for and the actual amount received by him when he makes the trade. So we have a formula here for consumer surplus that we definitely need to know. Consumer surplus: if Q naught units of a commodity are sold at a price of P naught dollars per unit and P is equal to D of Q, is the consumer's demand function for the commodity, then the consumer surplus, or CS, is given by CS is going to equal the integral from 0 to Q naught of D of Q dQ minus P naught Q naught. CS is the total amount of consumers are willing to spend for Q naught units minus the actual consumer's expenditures for those Q naught units. Likewise, if some manufacturers would be willing to supply a product at a price lower than the equilibrium price, the total difference between the equilibrium price and that lower price at which the manufacturers would be selling the product is considered added income for the manufacturers and is called producer's surplus. So a producer's surplus is defined as the difference between the amount the producer is willing to supply goods for and the actual amount received by him when he makes the trade or that sale. So I'm going to give the box right below a star. The formula for producer's surplus is given in the box. So if Q naught units of a commodity are sold at a price of P naught dollars per unit and P naught equals S of Q is the supply function for the commodity, then the producer's surplus, or PS, is given by PS equals P naught times Q naught minus the integral from 0 to Q naught of S of Q dQ. And so we have a graph given right below that shows that consumer surplus and the producer surplus when we have a supply curve and a demand curve and that point of equilibrium in the middle. So we have an example on the next page. The example says, find the consumer surplus if the demand function for extra virgin olive oil is given by D of Q equals 32,000 over 2Q plus 8 raised to the third power, and if supply and demand are in equilibrium at Q equals 6. So at Q equals 6, we're asked to find the consumer's surplus. So the first thing we're going to do is write down our consumer's surplus function, and that is equal to the integral from 0 to Q naught of D of Q dQ minus P naught times Q naught. First thing to note here, though, is that we are integrating only this part. P naught and Q naught are just going to be values that we have. And so we actually have our Q naught value that is equal to 6. And then to find the value of our P naught, we're going to substitute in Q naught into our demand function. And doing this, we're going to substitute in 6. And so we're going to have 32,000 divided by 2 times 6 plus 8 raised to the third power. And working this out on a calculator, we arrive at 4. And so we know Q naught is equal to 6 and P naught is equal to 4. And so from here, our consumer surplus function is going to become the integral from 0 to Q naught, and Q naught is 6, of D of Q dQ and D of Q we're given. That is 32,000 over 2Q plus 8 cubed DQ minus P naught we just found was 4 and Q naught we know is 6. So from here we need to integrate this, and you'll notice that to integrate this we can't integrate it as it's written. We're going to have to use U substitution. So I'm going to let U equal the part that is the inside function, which is inside the parentheses, which is 2Q plus 8. Then du would be equal to 2 dq, or dq is equal to 1/2 du. And so from here, my limits of integration are going to change. But for right now, I'm going to have 3,200 over u to the third. And then instead of dq, I'm going to multiply by 1/2 du. And then minus 24, just multiplying the 4 times the 6. So my limits of integration are going to change. The upper limit of integration, we need to substitute in 6. And I'll just show my work on my integral. It's going to be 2 times 6 plus 8. That would be my new u value. And my lower u value is going to be 2 times 0 plus 8. And that would be my lower limit of integration. And so from here, I can simplify 32,000 over 2 to 16,000. And since that's a constant, I'm just going to pull that out in front of my integral. My lower limit of integration becomes an 8. And my upper limit is 2 times 6, which is 12, plus 8, which is 20. And then I have 1 over u to the third, which I'm going to rewrite as u to the negative third, du. And then also don't forget your minus 24. From here, I can integrate this by adding 1 to my exponent. So we have 16,000. And it's going to become u to the negative second over negative 2. And evaluating this from u equals 8 to 20. And then don't forget you still have to subtract 24. So substituting in 20, and then I can also simplify this. So simplifying this, I get negative 8,000 over u squared, evaluated from u equals 8 to 20 minus 24. And so I have negative 8,000 over 20 squared minus negative 8,000 over 8 squared minus 24. Simplifying the first fraction, we get negative 20 minus the second one, 8,000 divided by 64. It's going to be negative 125 minus 24. And so this works out to being 81. And so our consumer surplus is going to be 81. And we'll say that this is in dollars. So our consumer surplus would be $81.